Didn't do any of the microphone testing. Is that dust on my shirt? Oh, I got a dingy shirt on. Well, it's not dingy because, well, whatever dingy means. It's a clean shirt, but I don't know what this is. Uh, I don't know. But hello again, everybody. I used to say what it is though, buddy bros and lady women's on my on the videos I used to make and still might be making, but you know, it's a different vibe. uh, I didn't expect to be back here so soon because this is not going to be what this is. I'm not about to be out here giving y'all my thoughts every day or every couple of days. But um, with all the stuff that I told you I had been going on, I never really had time to like talk about the whole Kobe Bryant situation and like my thoughts on it. And the computer froze again, so we're gonna have to edit this and post. But anyway, I'm gonna talk about Kobe for a little bit and how how I viewed him as like, you know what I'm saying, somebody that played an integral part in my life without me even knowing him. And also um, what he represents in the idea of what we think about athletes and how making people commodities and things like that really warps our perception of like who they are and what they stand for and how we end up ascribing certain characteristics or whatever we may think they are to them when they might not actually totally be that person. So, as far as my relationship with Kobe Bryant, I've been a Laker fan for probably 25 years. Uh, you may say like, "How are you a Lakers fan? You live in Youngstown, Ohio." Well, I don't know. You got to ask my dad that because in this house, like any team he liked, I was a fan of. So, like, he was young in the 80s. So he was a 49ers fan, a Lakers fan. So you would have to ask him if he was being like, you know what I'm saying, bandwagon central because they was both cooking in the 80s. So maybe my dad just was bandwagon and I don't know. But I'm a 49ers and Lakers fan because of him. And so growing up, you know what I'm saying, I just was a Lakers fan. And so I was aware of Kobe and like Shaq and things like that. I was probably like, I think I was 6 when Kobe was drafted and began playing and things like that. And I was a Lakers fan during that entire time and a huge basketball fan. Like sports is my thing. Like I think basketball is probably the thing that I appreciate most like in this entire world. Like um my mother said that like when I was little, like we would be like sitting in front of the TV and my grandmother would be there and it'd be sports on the television, like basketball specifically. And my grandmother, you know, thinking that I'm just a kid, like, oh, you know what I'm saying, let me change this channel, get some cartoons on up in here, you know what I'm saying, more kid friendly fare. And my mother said that as soon as she changed that channel from basketball to cartoons, bro, I would just be like in an uproar, just like super crying, like ready to just give everybody the hands. Grandma want the hands, she can collect some. Like, you know what I'm saying? We about to fight about this shooty hoops. So that's just like what basketball means to me. Like personally, like it's just I get a sense of like peace, like watching or playing basketball. Like it's my favorite thing in the world. So I've been a cognizant basketball fan since 1996. Like I remember uh, Jordan hitting that shot against the Jazz in '98. Like I remember where I was. Like so, like it's a huge part of my life. And in that respect, Kobe is a huge part of my life. Like uh, I got league pass in like 2003 or 2004 when we moved to the house that I would live in for like most of my high school years and everything like that. And like every night that the Lakers had a game, I was watching. So if you do like the math, like on the amount of time I've spent just watching Kobe Bryant play basketball, like 2004 to 2016, I think I missed maybe one game, and it was like during the 50-point game streak, like, and I was sick too. Like I think it was the game they played in Memphis. I think I missed that one, but any other time I was there, so you'd figure 80 just on general math, not including playoffs, like 82 games a season, like 2 hours, 2.5 hours per contest over 16 years. Like I spent like years watching just this, like years just watching this man play basketball. And like a lot of the ideas of like how I evaluate like basketball players and things came from just like watching Kobe. Like not comparing like anything like intangible per se, like things like people try to measure like killer instinct and like you know what I'm saying, just people's disposition, which is really hard to like psychoanalyze. I don't know why we like doing that so much because like we don't spend enough time with these peoples to know peoples. We don't spend enough time with these people to know what they're actually like. Like you can see certain things, but like inventing a whole persona or something based on what you see on the basketball court is kind of foolish to me. But I evaluate players in the sense that he had every skill on the basketball court. So if you know anything about me, you know I'm a skill guy before like an athleticism guy or anything like that. Like you can tell probably because like D'Angelo Russell is like one of my favorite guys to watch, and like nobody would ever accuse him of being like this athletic dynamo or things like that. But just from watching Kobe, I think that I got a good sense of what a good basketball player is for the most part. Like if I was to say one thing, I would like when I'm trying to evaluate somebody is I look at like their passing first before like anything else, like dribbling, all of that stuff, because I think watching him through sort of like osmosis gave me an understanding of what a smart basketball player looks like. And I think that if you're a smart basketball player, you can be, you know what I'm saying? Other things can be worked on and things like that. But if your brain's not in the right place to play, like, and make reads off schedule and things like that, then like I have a little harder time seeing it for you. So I'll look at somebody that'll make a pass that's not part of a drawn up set, but is the next logical step in how the defense is playing them or something. And I respect that. And I was like, okay, I see, I see this person right here might be something. And I think that's a thing that we forget, like when we talk about like Kobe Bryant's greatness is, just how smart and cerebral he was on the court. And I think that his passing was like a severely underrated like aspect of his game. And a lot of people, like when they want to talk about like the toughness that they saw Kobe display, they pull up that shot when he played against the Pelicans, and like he hit this turnaround fadeaway with his left hand. What my favorite play from that game wasn't even that play, but it was after he had hurt his shoulder, and it kind of encapsulates like how his playmaking like got ignored and things like that. Same situation, he's in the post, and he's on the same side of the court, and his arm is just dangling, and this dude throws a cross court pass left-handed on the money. It doesn't get converted, so it's not an assist, so it's very hard to find. It was on YouTube on Kachuka Man's channel, but it's not up there anymore. But just like you would see him do things like this, and it's like, why do people not appreciate like the level of playmaker he was and things like that? So the fact that that might be lost to the annals of history is just like really disappointing, because it just shows like the dude had everything. Like I don't know 5 people that can throw an offhand cross court pass right on the money. You know what I'm saying? Manipulating the defense. And this dude did it when his shoulder was hanging off the bone. Like he just was that kind of dude. Why does this camera keep freezing? Anyway, so yeah, I've spent 20 years of my life just being acquainted with that level of guy who we appreciate, but we also, I don't know if we appreciated him as we should have for various reasons, some of which was his fault. But like, you know what I mean? It's difficult to really see where the disconnect was. I don't know if it was like there's this thing where people have a healthy dislike of you, and sometimes they can't identify where it's from. And so I think a lot of the things that we saw over the years were like misplaced feelings due to like the fear and distress that Kobe caused by like killing their teams and things like that. So it'd be people that'll just hate the dude and just hate him and hate him and hate him. And it's like, I don't understand where you could form this like opinion of this guy, like that you see. If you're an opponent, you only see him 4 times a year. Like if you know what I'm saying, if you hate him that much, like you can watch him on national TV and all this other stuff. So 10 times a year you see this dude, like where are you developing this like vitriol from? And I get what people say when they say like they don't like his fans or whatever, but I don't think that's like a legitimate reason to not like somebody. Like I don't think that somebody else's obnoxiousness should affect how you evaluate the person that they're being obnoxious about. That line of thinking never made sense to me. So like I said in my last time, like in my last video, like that's why I don't get into like rivalries and things like that, because it's a lot of that kind of stuff. Like, oh, I don't like their fans, so I'm not gonna like their team. And I'm like, bro, these two things have nothing to do with one another in my mind. Like, I don't understand like where you making this connection at. I understand it, but like I don't understand it. And so um the thing that made Kobe's passing so weird was like you seeing all these guys that you follow for years. And like I follow a lot of people that didn't necessarily like Kobe, because unfortunately a lot of the funniest people on Twitter like did not like Kobe for whatever reason. I don't know if they're doing it just to get jokes off or they genuinely didn't like him. But you see that after he passed, that like they kind of had this realization, like I don't think they realized that how important he was to them also. I think that it was a lot of misplaced feelings. I think some of it may have been trolling, but like I think they came to realize like they wasted a lot of time just like doodling on this man, like one of the greatest people we've ever seen play the game. Like, and you spent 20 years of your life just like failing to appreciate what you was looking at. Like, I know that had to be like it had to be a weird feeling for a lot of people, and that's not to like disparage them or anything, because people gonna do what they want to do. But I think we saw that like some of the things we engage in when we're talking about sports and just like conversing with people in general, it's it's no rhyme or reason to it, but it's also keeping us from like enjoying what the good things are about the game. And like I'll get into discussions about like the skill aspects of the game and things like that. I'm not a person who gets involved with like the team building aspect and things like that. Like I don't like cap numbers and all this thing about, you know what I'm saying, people's trade value, because it gets into this weird thing where like we see these people as commodities. And I'm here for like the skill of the game more than like, you know what I'm saying, the my GM aspect of it. And not to say it's like any kind of moral like thing that prevents me from doing that. I don't know. I just don't talk about it that way. So if you want to talk about skills and, you know what I'm saying, the beauty of the game and things like that, I can talk about it all day. But we want to talk about transactions. That's only fun to a certain extent, to where you see how it fits. But it's like, oh, we could trade him because his cap number, like I don't like, you know what I mean? I don't really get into that as much. But back to the idea of these people on this basketball courts as like commodities and like basically entertainment hubs in and of themselves. I think when we view them in that lens, a lot of times we get lost in like what they are as like people. And so I know that when we like human beings like things to be rational and easily explained and things like that. This is probably going to have to be an audio podcast because this camera keeps freezing. But like I said, I think human beings like simple explanations and, you know what I'm saying, things that they can rationalize in their brain without having to do too much thought or like soul searching. And so I think when we analyze athletes in the same way, we have a tendency to like look at things that are surface level. And when we do that, we also kind of like ascribe general characteristics to what we think a person is or who they are, partially based on what they present to us, but like it's also partially a thing of where we intermingle our own life experiences and our worldviews into the analysis that we have of these people. And I think that Kobe's passing like exemplifies that like fact like tenfold. Like we all had like some idea who we thought this man was, and like if you were a person that didn't really like him that much, you probably didn't see like the guy that everybody is telling you that he is now. Like if you wanted to look for the guy that Kobe was, like the signs were there. Like it wasn't just like he was just this secretive guy that was just like doing all his beneficial stuff and hiding in the shadows and acting mean on purpose and things like that to hide who he was. Like it, and all you gotta do is watch an interview, like, and you could see that this person right here, although he may be a little prickly, like, you know what I'm saying, and to what extent was that an act? You know what I mean? But he's this prickly guy, but you could never accuse him of not being somebody that wasn't thoughtful and like measured in his responses and like really analyze what his idea of winning was and like what his role in driving that was, whether it be, you know what I'm saying, being the mean guy or like, you know what I'm saying, being this hard ass guy, and how he thought that that would be beneficial to his people. Like all of this stuff was rooted in thinking about other people, if you really think about it. Like, even though it may come off as something that's like callous or things like that, it was still him looking at other people and figuring out like, hey, how can I affect this person? Like, how do I interject myself in a way that's beneficial for both of us? And like, you know what I'm saying, feelings outside of it, because like we're here to win. And you can understand that on like an analytical level. But then you see that that help extended beyond him playing the asshole role too, right? So it becomes this thing where we talk about him being this killer, and people wanted to, like, we see the aggressive guy in the heat of competition, and we think that applies to the rest of his life, because we have him say things like banners last, like friendships come and go, banners last forever, and things like that. Of course, he likes to mythologize, like make himself a myth in some ways, like in storytelling and things like that. And you could, if you pay attention, you could kind of see past the things he was doing. And like even in those sentiments, like if you do some follow up and you were paying attention to the stuff he was saying, it makes sense. Like he was talking about the fact that he didn't know if he could be a good friend while he was like in the NBA. And it wasn't like people tried to make it this thing where he was like this sociopathic robot with like, I don't have time for friends, and like, you know what I mean, I don't need those. That's not what I ever took from it. My reading of that situation was he understood what time means in relationships, and he was a person that realized that he wasn't ready to sacrifice the amount of time necessary to like be what's called a good friend. And like I've had this like sentiment, like in my personal life, like if I decide like if I want to be in a relationship or something like that, I realize like most of the time I'm a person that values my time a lot. And so that affects like how I interact with people and whether or not I want to like pursue anything further. Like, and it's not where it's this thing like I don't need people or anything, but it's like I know where my comfort level is with the amount of interaction I want to have with people. And his was from a similar thing. Like he like, it's not that he's thinking that he doesn't want to have friends necessarily. It's like, if I can't give you like my all for this relationship, like I'd rather just keep it at arm's length and like keep it cordial, like, which makes all the sense in the world if you take it out of the banners or last forever type thing. I think that was more of a way of rationalizing the way he behaved, and not saying he behaved in a way that was like negative or anything like that, but just rationalizing the choices he made. And like he probably realized that he sacrificed some friendships and some things that could have been valuable to him like post career. Like I'm sure he realized that. But now we get to see that even though he wasn't in people's lives that way, like he wasn't a guy that pushed people away either. And like I think we had this idea of him as being this isolated killer guy, and like we're finding out that that wasn't the case at all. So like what you do when you try to distill like what you think a person is into like what you see them do professionally, or like something that's a small part of their lives, like it's a huge part of their lives to us, because like that's when we see them doing this every time. If you see somebody walking down the street, you know what I'm saying, in the baker's hat 30 times, you're just going to assume they're a baker. And like whatever characteristics of a baker you may think makes you a baker, like you'll ascribe to that person without even really thinking about it. So we ascribed our thoughts of what this person was based on we see him like as a competitor. And also we have a weird read on him as well because we saw him grow up. And so like a lot of the aspects of his personality that people didn't like a lot of that stuff was when he was like mid 20s, bro. Like I'm 30 years old. Like, and I don't have any like public like accountings of the kind of person I was. Like I've pretty much been the same person my entire life. But just like the idea that we see him be this guy and he's 25 years old and like we see him achieving all the success, and it's this weird thing where like we kind of forget how young these people are. Like even now, like I'm 30 years old, I'll watch a player play basketball on TV and it just like makes them seem a little bit older, like because they got things like they're on TV, they're successful, and it gives them this like artificial age that like makes us forget how old these people really are and like what they are outside of the court. Like they're kids. Like even towards the end of people's career, what are you, early 30s, mid 30s? Like you, the idea of what an adult is in this day and age is like we're like you 25, bro, you still a child. Like all things considered, like you ain't an adult. I don't even know what the trappings of like, not the trappings, but like what the characteristics of an adult are necessarily. Because once I got out in the workforce, I realized like all this stuff is basically like high school. Like at what point does a person become an adult? Like when they're like responsible for themselves. Like we can't apply these rules to millionaire athletes. And so a lot of what people thought about him was colored by the guy he was at 25. And I know that people didn't have the privilege to cover him like and follow him as closely as I did because they weren't necessarily fans of him. But like you could see that he wasn't the same like guy when he was like 28. Like you could see that he wasn't this like narcissistic like guy who just wants to step on everybody to get what he wants. He wasn't that guy. Like he played the role of that guy when he felt he needed to, but he wasn't that guy. Like, and the more and more we're seeing it, like, dude might have been, I don't know, I can't say like Mother Teresa anymore, like, because, you know, she had her own issues. Jesus Christ. Ooh, sorry. But we could talk about that any other time. But just the idea that, like, you know what I'm saying, we don't know who these people are, and we spend a lot of our time analyzing sports, thinking about the wrong things, and like trying to psychoanalyze who people are as people, calling people soft because they may not be the best in like a clutch situation. You know what I mean? Like just calling people soft, not realizing what they came through to get here. Like I don't care what you had to go. Like I don't care if you get nervous at the free throw line when there's 10 seconds left, bro. If you in the NBA, if you made it to the height of your profession, like I don't understand how you could possibly call a person like that soft. Like this is not something you get to if you're a soft person. Like that's just not a thing that should be said. Like, well, you could say it, but I don't understand how you could logically conclude that. Now, maybe, you know what I'm saying, if you got a person that's like 7 feet and that wild stat that like, it was like 16% of people over 7 feet are in the NBA or something wild like that. So like, even then, it's still a lot of work, and being a person that big and still being coordinated, that takes work on your athleticism. It's just all kind of things. So like, we tend to get comfortable labeling people and ascribing characteristics to their personality based off of basketball games, which is just, I don't know. It seems like not a wise thing to do for the most part. And so, just the analysis of people in general, we don't have the luxury of like being more in depth in these kind of endeavors. But you know what I'm saying, we gotta realize that prejudgment is a thing, whether we like it or not. And it I guess it serves some purpose. I don't think it serves as much purpose as it did, you know what I'm saying, evolutionarily speaking. I don't know if that's a word, but we're going to rock with it. And just realizing that, like, this thing was here to entertain us, as opposed to, like, having this thing where it makes us hate a person that we're watching, or, like, have this vitriol for somebody that's just playing a game. Like, I think that puts it in perspective. Like, all the GOAT conversations, like, they're fun, but most of the things I see aren't like they don't contain nuance, and they're not discussing like actual basketball skills. We want to like talk about competitive fire and like clutch numbers that like are arbitrarily defined, and it's like we gotta like have more context. We gotta do nuance. We gotta have nuance about the pace of play and like the defensive rules. Like, because we could talk till we blue in the face about the illegal defense rules of the early '90s and like how Kobe would have been cooking those boys. Like, or the rules of today. Like, Kobe was what 34, putting up like 28. I don't remember what the exact number was, but he had like 47, 10, 8, something crazy the night before he tore his Achilles. And it's like, you think that this old guy in this Mike D'Antoni system wouldn't be able to do that now? So like, that's why these conversations tend to get weird like that, because when it's time for nuance, everybody wants to like shy away from it. But when it's narrative time, like, and it fits something that you've been told your entire life about this person that you don't really know, it's like, oh yeah, well, that makes sense to me, I'm gonna go with that. And so just an examination of how we do things is kind of weird. But you know what I'm saying? It's no fault to be had or anything like that. I think we just do ourselves a disservice when we try to get into the minds of people. Like, we're here, like, we can get into what we see, like, but just because a dude misses a jumper with 8 seconds left don't mean that he has some flaw inherently in his personality, right? Like, I think that's a silly way to go about it. So like, if you want to talk about why he missed the shot, maybe his footwork was bad, or you know what I mean, like he didn't get the same kind of release on his jumper. Like, I'm all for those kind of conversations, but when we get into the line where we're trying to talk about these people as human beings and like their failings as human beings based off of a game that really doesn't matter, like I can't get jiggy with that kind of stuff. And so like, I just thought about these things a lot, like in the aftermath of like, you know what I'm saying, this guy not being here, because like I haven't seen any more of those goofy goat conversations or anything like that. And I think like, I guess it's like there's an aspect of like debate that's fun for most people. You know what I'm saying? I can take it or leave it, but I think we see like that we need to actually sit and enjoy what we're watching while we're watching it. And if somebody's great, don't be afraid to like get him props, bro. Like, I don't care if he plays for the team that you don't like. Like, just, you can still have a healthy like dislike for the team and organization and all this other thing, but just like know that like, just respect it, bro. Like, we here to have fun first and foremost, and like, I'm not gonna like hate on Kevin Durant because he played for the Warriors while I was a Lakers fan. Like, that's absurd, bro. If he cooking somebody and I'm watching it, I'm sitting here and it's big fun. Even if he's cooking us, like, it's gonna scare the shit out of me. Like, but it's still gonna be fun. Like, I didn't develop a healthy dislike for like Carmelo Anthony because he scared the shit out of me. Like, when it was time in the Western Conference Finals, like he had the ball and I was like, oh shit, he probably about to make the shot. Like, that didn't make me dislike him. Like, you know what I mean? I respected it, and I think that's kind of where we got to come from. But I didn't want to get too far off in the weeds. I don't even know if that's going to be on there because this camera froze a lot of times. But basically, just, this isn't like a memorial. I thought this was a good opportunity to talk about like the ways in which we talk about sports and like things that we ostensibly enjoy, how we could get lost in like things that don't necessarily matter as much as far as like the sports aspect of it. Like, we forget sometimes that we're here to enjoy these things and enjoy these people, and we try to like bring our own biases and our own views on life into what should be just a sports game. And I guess that's because the stakes are higher and the money is long and all this other stuff. But I'm here to enjoy what I'm watching. I'm not here to call somebody you know what I'm saying, soft, or like try to put their failings on the court as failings as them as a human being, because we're dealing with exceptional people, however you want to look at it. So like, I could never bring myself to like, you know what I'm saying, say that these people are lesser than, or they're soft, or they're this or they're that, because like it the conclusion doesn't follow when you see the heights that they've reached. And so I'm here to talk about, what I'm saying, skills, the fun of the game, sets, what I'm saying? You want to talk about some plays, I'm all for it. We want to talk about legacies, that we can talk about that, but that's when we get into weird areas of personal biases and, I'm saying, personal grievances that people have that don't have anything to do with actual basketball. I don't think I really have too much else to say. I think we're gonna leave it there. I'm gonna probably have to edit this. This might not even see the light of day if the way this camera was acting. It might just have to be audio for the most part. But I'll be back soon. I don't know. I think since the bar starts today, if I remember correctly. I was supposed to be taking a bar, but personal things have prevented that. But I guess I can tell you guys the story of how I failed the bar and like the shenanigans that were involved with all of that, because it was a lot of shenanigans going on. The first time I failed it twice. Maybe you'll find out why later, but that's all I got for now. I'm saying just have fun out there. Don't take anything too seriously. And yeah, till next time.